Thank you, Jennifer, David, Ophia. Welcome to the band, Lisa. Yay. Thank you, John and Ryan and Lewis. Good morning. Change your story. You know, I think spiritual growth maybe sometimes is like a spiral, and sometimes it's like an onion. You go deeper and deeper, but every so often you just hit the same spot over and over and over again to heal it, to grow through it, to get better at it, I guess, is what we're doing. And this is something that I have worked on for decades, changing my story, because I know that we will believe whatever we tell ourselves. That if we tell ourselves something, our subconscious takes that in, and we experience that in our lives. In psychology, they tell us that whatever we focus upon and dwell on in our lives, we will experience in our lives. In metaphysics, we tell ourselves that if we focus on something, we will actually create that in physical form. Whether it's the law of attraction, bringing it into our experience, whether we just pick and choose through the billions of people on the planet to find someone that is a direct match to what we're telling ourselves, and then we call it love and get married. Holy moly. Whatever way we do it, we will have in our lives what we have in our heads. That's why we say if we name it, we're going to claim it, and if we know it, we will grow it in our lives. And so it's important for us to look objectively at what we are telling ourselves, what our beliefs are about our lives. And whatever it is we continue to tell ourselves, we will continue to get in our lives. And so Monday night, we're going to have a lot of fun doing vision boards. The reason that we do vision boards is that we get to, pretend like we're 4 or 5 with glue sticks and scissors and all of that stuff. But we plaster different ideas on something, and then we put it somewhere where we can see it. So let's say we want to have a sailboat, we put a picture of a sailboat on there. We want to have a new car, we put a picture of a new car on there. And that is telling us a story about what our lives are like. For many of us, we have plastered images of lack and struggle and suffering on our mental vision board. And then when we think of those things. And so we create them in our lives. And the trick is that since we thought it was so, and then we created it in our lives, we can look at that creation and go, wow, I always knew that that's the way life was, that life is hard, that men will leave you, that there's never enough time or opportunity or whatever it is. These are revealing my subconscious to you. Whatever it is that we plaster on that internal board inside of ourselves, then we experience that and go, well, I knew that was true, and there it is. Not realizing that there it is because we first knew it was true. And so in Science of Mind, we practice changing what we believe. We change what we think. The motto of Science of Mind is change your thinking, change your life. And I like to add the tagline on there, change your life, change the world. So change your thinking, change your life, change the world. And we know that by coming together in spiritual community that we will change each other's lives just by being in the same room, because there is only one. There's only one presence, one power, one life, one love. It's manifest as individualizations like points in physical form as us. But we are the point of spirit in form as us. Some people think we're crazy. I don't care. I'd rather be crazy with you than sane with them. And so we look at the stories in our lives. And I'm reminded of my very first teacher of changing your story. And I wasn't expecting you to be in the room today, but it's my sister Margaret. Because Margaret and I had a wonderful sibling relationship as we got older and stopped drawing blood from each other. But we had a wonderful sibling relationship. We didn't live close to each other then. And when we would get together, we would play the game of Ain't It Awful? Ain't it awful what we went through as kids? Can you believe that we survived our childhood? Holy smokes. If we were a child today, social services would have taken us out of that place because it just flat wasn't safe. We played the story of, do you remember when our father took all 4 of us every Saturday and dropped us off at the dump? Yeah, dropped us off at the dump so that he could go drinking, and my mother would think that we were keeping him from drinking. But we got to be at the dump all day, every Saturday. Can you imagine what would happen if somebody did that with their children today? Can you imagine what would happen if someone just flat out locked their kids outside and told them they had eaten when they hadn't eaten and said, there's the hose, and, don't bother me, kid. So we would play this game. Yeah, look at that face. Isn't that great? I practiced this story so many times. I've had so many therapists give me that face. True facts. But I practiced the story. And my sister was living in Fort Myers and started going to a Science of Mind Center over there, and then everything changed. Because we got together one day, and I knew who I was as the wounded child. I knew who I was in relationship with her as the younger sibling. And I knew how to hook her into playing our game. And I was secure in that game. This is so neurotic. I was a religious science minister playing that game. And she's going to Science of Mind in Fort Lauderdale, in Fort Myers, and we got together. For some reason, we were sitting on the porch of my parents' house where we grew up and sat for hours as children waiting for someone to let us in. And I started the game of, can you believe that we survived all of that? Can you believe what we went through? And honest to God, she looked at me with a straight face and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I had a wonderful childhood. I wasn't a happy camper at this point because factually I knew that that was a lie. And yet, in truth, she had started to change her story. Because when we have limiting stories about who we were as a child, and there are plenty of people who will deal with woundology and play the game and take good money for decades of therapy for this kind of thing. There are plenty of people who will engage at that level, but when we do that, we keep ourselves in the present moment stuck to who that child was or who that younger person was. I've often stood up here and said, the child that I was had no business growing up to be the woman that I am today, except for me. There but for the grace of I go I. Yeah, breathe in that one. And so when we allow our stories to be limiting stories, then we end up with an experience today of limitation. And because we are such powerful, creative, spiritual beings, we will demonstrate that limitation in our lives. So when I was an unlovable child, I had to fall in love with people who would not love me. And then I had to make sure that they didn't fall into the trap of loving me. I had to work at it and make sure they did not love me, and I was good at that until finally we would part ways. If I have a belief as a child that there's never enough, then I will demonstrate my adult life in alignment with there not being enough. And so I will create not enough time, not enough opportunity, not enough money, not enough support. Whatever that is, I will do that. It's so important that we look at what's going on inside of us because many of us have told our story so many times we don't know it's a story anymore. We think it's the truth. And just because it's factual doesn't mean it's the truth. Just because those things happened doesn't mean that that's the truth of us. When I started reevaluating my story, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to believe that I had a pony and all of this, a unicorn and all of that stuff in my childhood, so I started to look for the good in it. In being on my own at an early age, I developed inner strength. In being on my own at an early age, I developed the ability to read people, and I knew who the safe people were, and I knew when to run. On being on my own at an early age, I was very resourceful. I lived in Miami, so I ate hibiscus flowers. I was a connoisseur of St. Augustine grass. I would steal anything I could get my hands on. I would climb the neighbors' trees and pick their mangoes and get chased out of their yard because I knew I could run faster than they could. I developed resources inside of me. So when I look at my story about those things happened, but look at what the result was, I get a different outcome today because I am the person that is not afraid to risk. I'm not afraid to do things that people think I shouldn't do, that are impossible to do. We built this center with absolutely no money because we didn't know we couldn't, and so we did. And there's a lot of value to that. So when I can look at myself and say, I have resources far beyond that of many people who had a wonderful childhood and they were protected and coddled and helped to do their homework, things like that, I've got something special that I had to get inside of myself. One of the things that I think is a value of this teaching is that when people tell me that their backs are against the wall, I go, great, great. Because then you're going to have to demonstrate. You're going to have to prove that this teaching works. I know of colleagues that try to run centers without actually committing to their ministry, that keep a side job just to pay the bills. And the center never flourishes because they never made it flourish. They never had to have it flourish. When we had the young adult group, and we had a whole program going on internationally of we've got to pay the class fees for the young adults so that we have younger ministers in the movement. And I was thinking, you can't do that. I took classes when I was 27 years old. I didn't have any money to pay for those classes, but I had to create it. And when you do that, you've got to be able to demonstrate what it is you want to have in your life. And there's great value in that. People who come to me and say they've gotten a diagnosis of something, great. Let's prove that health and wholeness are the truth and that they supersede and transcend any kind of doctoral diagnosis or picture or piece of paper of all kinds. And so when we do that, we have these amazing healings because we have to have the healing. And I had to have that demonstration. I had to know that even though things were dicey in my life, that I had resources inside of me, that I didn't have to depend on someone else and wait for someone else to come and save me. So I've been working on this story thing for a long time. So imagine my surprise down in Miami when I was going out to the beach with my beloved husband, and this trip was supposed to be the trip for rest. So we get out to the beach, and the sustained winds were 25 miles an hour. The gusts were 47 miles an hour, and we're trying to open up an umbrella against that and not let it fly away while we put down giant sand anchors and bungee everything together and try to be there in the elements because we haven't been to the beach since April and we want to go to the beach. We're completely in denial about the comfort level. We seem to think that once we can get behind the umbrellas, everything's going to be hunky-dory. And because of the last 4 months, where John had all of the pain and the struggle and the spine surgery and the not being able to do anything, not being able to lift anything, not being able to bend or twist or reach or do anything like that, he's out there, with the umbrellas and the cooler and all of this stuff, and I'm running around like I've done for 4 months trying to say, don't lift that up. You're bending, you're twisting, you're reaching, you're lifting. You're not supposed to do that. Let me do it, and I'm running around because that's what I've done for 4 months. And so that night, because he was making some loud noises again, and that night, I woke up in the middle of the night, and my heart is pounding, and I'm going, crap, he hurt his back. We're going to have to go through this all over again. And you know how some people have their mother's voice in their head? I so clearly have Margaret's. And she said to me, change your story. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm wide awake listening to the voice of my sister. Change your story. And I looked at John and I said, maybe he's not helpless anymore. Maybe he's not weak anymore. Maybe he's not at risk anymore. Maybe the surgery that he had 2.5 months ago has all healed up and he really is okay to function as a human being. So I said, fine, I'm done with that old story. I'm done with looking at him as someone who is less than, someone who needs my help, someone that I have to run interference for. It's football season, run interference. And I was looking at myself going, what kind of a payoff am I getting out of this? Ooh, I've gotten some really good accolades over the last 4 months. I've been so helpful. It's not my nature. So I've had an opportunity to be the good wife, the wife that got up in the middle of the night and gave medicine and drove him everywhere and all of that stuff. But at what price do I want to keep that? I don't want to be the helpful person. I don't want to. Anyone who's come to counsel with me, you know that's not my style. I don't help you. I push you. That's what I do, because I know that there's something inside of you that's got this, and that stopping and seeing it as this giant thing isn't helping you. You made a story up that your problems are bigger than you, and they're not. You're bigger than your problems. You created them. You put them there. You can just as easily take them out. So I was looking at what my payoff was in this. Because every time I create a story in my life that has me not happy, not joy-filled, not prospering, not healthy, not filled with energy and zest for life, then I've traded being happy and healthy and joy-filled and filled with energy and having a zest for life and being prosperous for that. And I got to look at that and say, really, is that worth it? Is my old story that says I am somehow less than the presence of the divine in me, as me, is me now, is it worth that thing, that experience, that look of, oh. And I got to tell you, it's not. It's not. Feeling less than is never worth the trade-off of feeling whole. But to be able to get that, because remember, you believe whatever you tell yourself. If you believe that the world is scary and harsh, your world is scary and harsh. If you believe that your world is filled with love and joy and support, your world is filled with love and joy and support. I always marvel at how people on a planet of 7.5 billion people can feel lonely. Oh, I'm so lonely. Nobody likes me. Nobody loves me. Are you crazy? There's 7.5 billion people. Just pick anybody. Anybody. You can love and be loved by anybody. If you can't deal with a person, get a dog. I marvel at our power. I marvel at who we are. I marvel at how we can look at life in a universe of total love and support. That all we have to do is focus our energy, our thoughts, our words, our feelings, our intentions on something, and the powers of life itself will bring that into form in our life. I marvel at us. We can make ourselves sick. We can make ourselves well. We can make ourselves rich. We can make ourselves poor. We can do anything we want if we are willing to look at the world that way. And yet still, I find people who say, well, no pain, no gain. That's a tricky one, especially if you're going to a gym. Because it seems to make sense that a little bit of pain is always included in a little bit of gain. No. I read something last week that said you can't have compassion if you haven't experienced grief. And I thought, well, in your world, if you want that, you can have it that way. But I'm quite comfortable feeling compassion without having to suffer my way into it. I can feel compassion for someone who is suffering without having to jump into the suffering with them. For that matter, it's like a drowning person. If you jump in the water with a drowning person, chances are they're going to drown you. So it's best to stay up on high ground and do something to lift them out or pull them out. So these ideas, these stories that we hold about who we are, about what life is like, will set the stage for what we live today. And sometimes, even though we've thought we finished that years and years and years ago, don't be surprised if it comes around again. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden, for me, the way that it works is I'm looking at myself going, why do I feel this way again? Why am I tired? Why am I frustrated? Why am I upset? What is going on that I am creating that inside of myself and then manifesting it on the outside? And so I have to look around and see what I'm doing. Oh, wow, this is an old pattern. I thought I was through with that. I guess I'm not. I guess I'll go a little deeper, clean it up a little bit more, be willing to take a little bit more risk, and be the amazingly powerful, creative, spiritual being that I am. Some people say, oh, I want to be happy, and I think, no, you don't. If you want to be happy, you'd be happy. You want to have everything lined up so that you can be happy with no risk. Sometimes happiness is a risk. The miserable people around you won't like it. You may get criticized. You may lose your job, your friends. But what you get are happy things around you. People say, I want to be rich. If you wanted to be rich, you'd be rich. No, you got to get rid of all the poor mouth, the stinking thinking. What did I say last Monday night? It was brilliant. Don't be a try-baby. Don't be a try-baby, because whenever you try, you never achieve anything. Well, I tried, and it didn't work out. No. If you want to be happy, you'll be happy. If you want to be rich, you'll be rich. If you want to have friends, you'll have friends. But it goes back to what kind of a story are we telling ourselves? Because we will believe whatever we say. It's fascinating. So as we look at the stories in our lives, let's tell ourselves a new story. Let's tell ourselves a story that we are powerful, spiritual beings alive and well on planet Earth, that money seeks us out, that we are healthy and happy and whole, and that the entire universe comes together in concert and harmony to support us in being who we are. Let's tell ourselves stories that the doors are already open, the carpet is already rolled out, and that our good is already achieved, that success is ours now. Let's tell ourselves stories that we're wise beyond our wildest imaginations, that we are divinely guided and directed to be, do, and have exactly what is ours, that we are always in our perfect and right place, doing exactly what is ours to do. Let's tell ourselves stories that there is a light within us that shines so brightly, it lights up our own world and all around us. Let's tell ourselves stories that we are the one, we are the only one, because we are all there is, and so it is.